What if everything we know about our maps is wrong? What if a piece of land disappeared from Earth and no one noticed? Not thousands of years ago, not in a legend, but in our time. An island once recognized by nations, seen by sailors, marked for centuries. And then it vanished. Just like that Bermeja, a name almost erased from history. It used to sit in the Gulf of Mexico north of the Yucatán Peninsula. A dot on countless maps, from Spanish explorers to British naval charts. For 400 years it was there. And then one day it was gone. Today there's no trace. No land, no reef, no sign it ever existed. Only questions, was it ever real? Or is this the biggest mistake in modern cartography? Or maybe something more, something darker? Because Bermeja wasn't just any island if it had existed. Mexico would control more of the Gulf of Mexico and billions of dollars worth of oil reserves. Without it, the United States gains control. Was its disappearance just a coincidence or a calculated move in 2009? The Mexican Navy searched for it. They used sonar submersibles and historical coordinates. They searched the exact spot where Bermeja had always been shown. They found nothing. No land beneath the waves. No underwater ridge. No evidence at all. Just empty ocean. And yet for centuries, it was real to everyone. Spanish archives recorded it. Naval maps included it. Even CIA documents mentioned it. So, why does no one talk about it now? Why did it vanish right before oil negotiations with the United States? Is it possible to erase an island from existence? And if so, who would have the power to do that? Some believe the island never existed, that it was a mistake repeated over time. Others believe it sank or eroded, but some believe it was destroyed. Intentionally quietly erased from both maps and memory, Bermeja might be the key to a geopolitical secret. A quiet battle for power hidden beneath the sea. This isn't just about geography. It's about controlled territory and rewriting history. If Bermeja was real, then someone erased it for a reason. If it wasn't, then why did so many maps agree for centuries to uncover the truth? We need to go back to the beginning, to the first sailors who saw it, to the empires that claimed it, and to the silent years when it slowly disappeared from every chart. This is not just a mystery, it's a warning. Because if an island can be erased, so can the truth. This is the story of Bermeja, the island that vanished, or maybe the island that was never supposed to be found. Long before satellites, before GPS, before nations fought over oil, there were explorers and there were maps. And one island kept appearing again, and again Bermeja. The earliest mention came from 1539. Spanish sailors mapping the Gulf of Mexico recorded a small island north of the Yucatán Peninsula. It was there. They called it Bermeja because of its reddish tones. Bermeja means reddish in Old Spanish. In 1570, it was on the maps of Abraham Ortelius, a legendary cartographer from the Netherlands. His atlases shaped the way Europe saw the world, and Bermeja was part of that world. As centuries passed, more maps confirmed it. British naval charts in the 1700s, French records, even American maritime maps in the 19th century. They all showed Bermeja. Some said it was just 22 meters above sea level. Not large, but visible. Enough for sailors to spot, enough for nations to claim. By the 1800s, it was considered a fixed point, a part of Mexican maritime territory, a marker for boundaries, and yet almost no one ever visited. Some say local fishermen near the Yucatan knew of it, that they had seen it, that it was real. Others dismissed it, saying it was an outdated mistake, repeated for generations. But mistakes don't last 400 years. And nations don't fight over imaginary land. In 1946, a detailed Mexican naval chart still showed Bermeja, exactly where it had always been. Even in 1997, the CIA listed it in its world factbooks, not as a myth, but as a reference point. Then something strange happened. After the 1990s, it began to disappear, not sink, not erode, but disappear from maps one by one. By 2003, It was gone from official records, and by 2009, the Mexican government was confused. How could an island so well documented no longer exist? A search mission was launched. Experts were sent, but they were too late. Bermeja was no longer where it had always been. Some suggested it was an illusion, a mapping error caused by cloud cover, or optical tricks at sea. Others began to whisper about sabotage, that the island was destroyed intentionally. Because something else was happening in the background. Oil negotiations between Mexico and the United States. The boundaries of ocean territory were under discussion, and without Bermeja, those boundaries would shift. If Bermeja existed, Mexico would have a greater claim. If not, the United States would benefit. Now the question was no longer scientific, it was political. Why did Bermeja vanish just before these talks? Was it simply forgotten, or was it quietly removed? The silence in archives was deafening. No explanation, no geological report, no official reason. Just a gap where something once existed. Maps, once trusted, now raised suspicion. Was the past lying to us? Or had the present rewritten the past? The only way to know is to follow the evidence, the documents, the maps, and the people who still believe that Bermeja was real, and that someone, somewhere, wanted it to disappear. This is more than maritime mystery. It's a shadow in history, a ghost on every forgotten chart, and it's only the beginning. In early 2009, Mexico made a decision. It would no longer rely on old maps, on theories, on whispers. It would send ships, real ones, to find out once and for all if Bermeja ever existed or if it had truly vanished. The stakes were high. Not just national pride, but oil power and borders. The National Autonomous University of Mexico teamed up with the Mexican Navy. Together, they launched a mission to the exact coordinates. Where Bermeja had always been, they brought advanced sonar equipment, satellite GPSA, research vessel named Justo Sierra, and a question older than the nation itself. Where is Bermeja? They sailed into the Gulf of Mexico. Over calm waters, through blazing heat, they scanned the depths, line by line, grid by grid. Nothing. They dropped sonar. It pinged, echoed, returned only silence. Flat-seabed, no island, no elevation, no ruins. They checked the coordinates again, and again they reread old maps. They reran satellite images. Still nothing. The area they searched was exactly where centuries of maps had pointed. The supposed location of Bermeja, latitude 22 degrees, north longitude 91 degrees west, but there was no land, not even a submerged reef. Scientists on board began to doubt. Could 400 years of maps be wrong? Could it all be a mirage, a trick of the light, an error no one questioned? Or was something missing, something they weren't told? Because while they searched, tensions were rising in the media. Why was Bermeja gone? And more importantly, why now? Oil contracts between Mexico and the U.S. were underway. Agreements that depended on territorial boundaries. If Bermeja existed, it would change those boundaries and shift billions of dollars south. Some began to ask, was Bermeja removed by nature or by force? Could it have sunk due to erosion? Unlikely. The Gulf has stable seafloors. Was it never there? But then, why would it appear on every map for centuries? Or was it eliminated, bombed, destroyed, scrubbed from the sea quietly? Permanently, the scientists had no answers, just data, and a haunting truth. They found nothing, no island, no trace, just water. When the mission returned, the official report was brief. Bermeja could not be found. Its existence unconfirmed, the mystery still unsolved. But for many, that silence said everything. Because sometimes, it's not the presence of something that matters. It's the absence, the empty place, where something should be. This was not the end of the mystery. It was just the beginning of a bigger question. If Bermeja was erased, who did it, and why? And if an island can be deleted, what else can disappear? When Bermeja couldn't be found, theories began to surface fast, loud, and disturbing. The first theory was simple, that Bermeja never existed, that it was a cartographer's mistake, repeated and copied for centuries. A red ink error, an illusion on the horizon, a phantom island. But how could hundreds of maps across 4 centuries all repeat the same error from Spain to Britain, from the CIA to global atlases? Was that truly possible? Others said Bermeja sank, that it was a sandbar or coral island, that erosion slowly swallowed it whole. But geologists disagreed. The Gulf of Mexico has a stable seabed and no signs of recent submersion. Then came a darker theory, that Bermeja was erased, not by wind, not by water, but by human hands, that someone wanted it gone, needed it gone, and made it disappear. Eyes turned toward the CIA, because in 2000, just as oil negotiations were intensifying, Bermeja vanished from American intelligence records. Coincidence or coordination? The theory goes like this. If Bermeja existed, Mexico's exclusive economic zone would expand north, giving them greater rights over untapped oil reserves, a fortune buried beneath the Gulf. But without Bermeja, that oil could belong to the United States. And the 2000 Maritime Treaty between the two countries depended on those boundaries. So what if someone made sure Bermeja wouldn't interfere? Some suggest the island was bombed, targeted by covert naval forces, destroyed without trace, covered up by silence and smoothed over by diplomacy. There's no proof, but no evidence. It didn't happen either. Journalists dug deeper. They found that Mexican officials had once raised concerns about Bermeja disappearing conveniently. Right before negotiations began, documents were vague. Satellite images were inconclusive, and when the Navy found nothing, that absence became its own form of evidence. Could the United States really erase an island? Some say yes. With enough motive and enough secrecy, anything is possible. But maybe it wasn't America. Maybe Bermeja was never an island at all, but a rock, a reef, something misinterpreted and mythologized over time. Still, the precision of old maps, the consistency across empires, and the timing of its disappearance make that hard to believe in the end. All we know for certain is that Bermeja was there, and now it's not theories remain theories, but the shadow they cast stretches far beyond the Gulf, because this story is no longer just about a place. It's about the power to define reality, to redraw borders, to silence history, when maps can change, when islands can disappear, when truth becomes flexible. What else can be altered? What else have we already lost? Without ever knowing. In the Gulf of Mexico, beneath calm waters, lies a different kind of battlefield, not fought with weapons, but with boundaries. And what lies beneath them? Oil, billions of barrels hidden deep beneath the seabed, and who owns that oil? Depends on maps, coordinates, and maritime borders. This is where Bermeja mattered most. If Bermeja existed, Mexico's maritime boundary would stretch farther north, giving it control over massive offshore oil fields, known as the Donut Hole, an area rich in untapped petroleum. Without Bermeja, those waters fall into international territory or favor the United States. In the year 2000, Mexico and the United States signed a treaty dividing the Gulf's resources, a treaty based on current maps where Bermeja no longer appeared. The disappearance was convenient for one side. Mexican lawmakers raised concerns. Where is the island? Why was it removed? Who benefits? The answers never came. Only silence. Environmental studies claimed erosion. Others said it never existed, but the oil companies moved forward. Contracts were signed, drilling rights assigned, and the money started flowing, not to Mexico, but to companies backed by American interests. Bermeja became a ghost, a legal void. And in its absence, a $1 trillion oil deal became reality. Some Mexican senators accused their own government of being complicit, of ignoring the evidence, of letting the island vanish to avoid confrontation. Others believed foreign influence was involved, that maps were manipulated, that reality was edited to fit strategic needs. And the public, they were left with myths, confusion, and a mystery no one wanted to solve. Because if Bermeja existed, then someone allowed a national resource to be stolen in silence, and if it didn't, why was it used for centuries as a reference as a fact by every major power? Oil made this more than a mystery. It made it a geopolitical crime scene. In boardrooms, on naval charts, in diplomatic meetings, the name Bermeja was scrubbed clean, but its absence still echoes. Because this story is not just about territory, it's about leverage, control, and what happens when truth is replaced by silence. Who gained from Bermeja's disappearance? The answer is clear, and so is the cost. Because what disappeared wasn't just an island, it was a nation's claim, a people's right, and a chance at self-reliance, and all it took was for one island to vanish. The mystery of Bermeja didn't die in the 20th century. It only evolved with the rise of satellite imagery. The ocean became visible, even its secrets, even its ghosts. In 2009, Mexican researchers used sonar scans to sweep the area where Bermeja once stood. They found nothing, no rocks, no underwater shelf, just empty sea, as if nothing had ever existed there. But some independent researchers disagreed. They pointed to anomalies, slight rises on the ocean floor. An unusual occurrence was something buried, submerged, or erased. Enter Google Earth. Amateur investigators began scanning the coordinates frame by frame, looking for clues, for shadows, for anything out of place. Some claimed to see faint outlines, square shapes beneath the water, blurry but structured, like ruins. But Google never confirmed anything, and official maps remained unchanged in the digital age. We have more data than ever, yet Bermeja remains invisible. If it was a hoax, why did it appear for 400 years in Spanish maps, British records, American naval charts? If it eroded, why so suddenly? Why without a trace? Why at the exact moment oil rights were being decided? Some scientists say it's plausible that a low island eroded over centuries, that storms wore it away, that sea level rise swallowed it whole. But others point to classified naval activity, to underwater demolition, to deep-sea operations conducted far from media eyes. The truth may be a combination, part nature, part politics, and part something we may never understand, because Bermeja has become more than a place. It's now a symbol of how power shapes reality, how maps define wealth, and how silence can be louder than truth. Today, no ships go there, no expeditions are funded, and no government wants it found, because finding Bermeja would open old wounds. Legal battles, international claims, and a rethinking of Gulf oil ownership. That's the real reason it remains missing, but the ocean doesn't forget. It stores everything in layers, in silence, in pressure, and maybe one day technology will see through that silence. Through the sea, through the secrets, and Bermeja will rise again. If not as land, then as proof that not everything disappears without reason. Some vanish because someone wants them gone. The mystery of Bermeja didn't die in the 20th century. It only evolved with the rise of satellite imagery. The ocean became visible, even its secrets, even its ghosts. In 2009, to sweep the area where Bermeja once stood, they found nothing, no rocks, no underwater shelf, just empty sea, as if nothing had ever existed there. But some independent researchers disagreed. They pointed to anomalies, slight rises on the ocean floor, strange temperature changes, and unusual currents. Was something buried, submerged, or erased? Enter Google Earth. Amateur investigators began scanning the coordinates frame by frame, looking for clues, for shadows, for anything out of place. Some claimed to see faint outlines, square shapes beneath the water, blurry but structured, like ruins. But Google never confirmed anything, and official maps remained unchanged in the digital age. We have more data than ever, yet Bermeja remains invisible. Why did it appear for 400 years? British records, American naval charts. If it eroded, Why so suddenly? Why without a trace? Oil rights were being decided. Some scientists say it's plausible that a low island eroded over centuries, that storms wore it away, that sea level rise swallowed it whole. But others point to classified naval activity, to underwater demolition, to deep-sea operations conducted far from media eyes. The truth may be a combination, part nature, part politics, and part something we may never understand, because Bermeja has become more than a place. It's now a symbol of how power shapes reality, how maps define wealth, and how silence can be louder than truth. Today, no ships go there, no expeditions are funded, and no government wants it found, because finding Bermeja would open old wounds. Legal battles, international claims, and a rethinking of Gulf oil ownership. And maybe that's the real reason. It remains missing, but the ocean doesn't forget. It stores everything in layers. In silence, in pressure, and maybe one day technology will see through that silence. Through the sea, through the secrets, and Bermeja will rise again, if not as land, then as proof that not everything disappears without reason. Some vanish because someone wants them gone.